I've planned a trip to Cancun this time. Huh? A trip to Cancun. Hearing my mother-in-law say this with a smile, I harbored doubts. Despite being burdened with a huge debt and struggling to make monthly repayments. Why travel abroad? Moreover, despite the fact that I send money every month, why is she going to Cancun alone? I absolutely cannot accept this. This is no joke. As I raised my voice in anger, my mother-in-law looked puzzled. Yes, this was all my husband's scheme. I was shocked by this certain truth revealed by my mother-in-law. My name is Amy. I am 35 years old, working as a regular employee at a general company, living an ordinary life. 5 years have passed since I married Kevin. We had been living peaceful days without any major problems. However, suddenly a great trial appeared before us as a couple. This series of events was triggered by the recent death of my father-in-law. My father-in-law was a man of few words but gentle in nature, always caring for us as a couple. Thanks to him, I felt naturally integrated into my husband's family. That's why I couldn't accept his death. One evening, a little after his funeral, when things had calmed down, my husband suddenly started talking at dinner. Hey, Amy, it's weird to talk about this all of a sudden, but is something wrong? Actually, I've been thinking about starting to financially support my parents' house from next month. Support? Why would you do that? Since my father passed away, I think my mother is struggling on her own. Wait a minute. I quickly interrupted my husband. Your father's passing is sad, but your sister is living in your parents' house, right? Yes, that's right, but my husband has a sister living at home. She works for a prestigious company and earns much more than my husband. My father-in-law had also worked for a well-known company until his retirement. The retirement money should be with my mother-in-law. On the other hand, we, as a couple, work for small to medium-sized companies. Our income is probably lower than the average for our age group. In such a situation, I couldn't understand why we needed to send money to my mother-in-law. Kevin, I don't think your mother and sister are struggling with money. So why send money? When I asked this, an unbelievable answer came back. Actually, it seems rich on the surface, but my mom has a considerable amount of debt. What? My mother-in-law has such a huge debt. Yes, it's hard to believe, but it's true. But you know, for some reason, she hasn't told my sister about the debt at all. That's why I brought up this idea to somehow help her. But what about your father's retirement money? Actually, it seems that most of it went to his hospital bills, surgery costs, and funeral expenses. So now, my mom is really in a tough financial situation. That's a really difficult situation. Yes, it is. That's why I know I'm asking a lot, but I really want to help her. Seeing him bow his head deeply, I was torn. My mother-in-law had helped us, as a couple, many times before. While I was looking for my current job, she actively took over all the household chores in my stead and often came to cook dinner. Moreover, when my husband changed jobs and we were short of living expenses, she secretly gave him money. I was always full of gratitude for her kindness, and every time I thanked her, she returned with polite words of gratitude. Thanks to her support, we had overcome many difficulties. Now that she was in trouble, I couldn't just overlook it. Considering the favors we had received so far, I strongly felt the desire to help her. With those feelings, after a little hesitation, I eventually agreed to my husband's proposal. From that day, to support my mother-in-law financially, we became stricter about saving. We were not living luxuriously in the first place, but still, we simplified our meals even more and switched to cheaper items for daily use. My husband started working late every day and came home late at night more often. And then, an incident occurred during these days. Perhaps due to accumulated fatigue, I developed a fever and fell ill. When I was preparing to go to the hospital after calling in sick to work, my husband said, "Wait a minute, are you really going to the hospital?" "Yes, I am. Just a fever, isn't it? There's no need to go to the hospital for a mild fever, especially when we need to save money." What? I was surprised by his words, but managed to argue back. But what if it's a viral fever like the flu? We have fever reducers at home, right? Just take those and rest. You'll get better. Going to the hospital is a waste of money. That's not true. Listen to me. No matter what, don't go to the hospital. We're saving money, remember? After hearing those words, I had no choice but to rest at home and ended up being bedridden for 3 days. Since then, my distress towards my husband gradually began to increase. Months later, to check on my mother-in-law's well-being, we visited my husband's parents' house. As I stepped into the living room, clothes and travel bags were scattered everywhere. Were you in the middle of sorting something out? I asked, and my mother-in-law replied with a beaming smile. Oh, actually, I'm going to Cancun this time. A trip to Cancun. Yes, that's right. Sarah said she would come with me. Amy, how about you? Do you want to come along? Really? As I was surprised, my sister-in-law, Sarah, next to me started clapping her hands with joy, saying, "That's a great idea. Wait, what is this? We've been sending them money, and they're happily planning a trip to Cancun. This can't be happening." Without noticing my speechlessness, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law continued to excitedly talk about the Cancun trip. I'm so excited. It's my first time in Cancun. My mother-in-law said, and Sarah replied, "Me too. And it's surprisingly affordable this time of year." Exactly, Amy. Don't worry. If you can come with us, we'll cover the travel expenses. My mother-in-law continued, "Really, we've been so grateful to you ever since Kevin got married," added Sarah. Unaware of my feelings, they were engrossed in their conversation. Finally reaching my limit, I confronted my smiling mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who were inviting me to the trip. Stop joking. A trip abroad. What are you really thinking? I raised my voice. What? Startled by my sudden reproach, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law froze with their mouths open. Even though they were shaken, they tried to calm me down. Amy, what's wrong? Did we say something odd? Maybe you don't like traveling? Did we invite you too forcefully? It's not about that. How can you even think of inviting me on a trip? Do you understand our situation? Amy, calm down. What caused you to be so angry? Really, if you have the means to go on a trip, I'd rather you pay off your debts first. What? Debts? I let all my feelings out towards them. We can hardly save money, and even when I'm sick, we can't afford to go to the hospital, yet we prioritize sending you money. And yet, how can you calmly plan a trip abroad? Please consider our situation a little. After pouring out all my emotions, I noticed tears streaming down my cheeks. Whether it was anger, sadness, or both, I wasn't sure. However, I was certain that the frugal lifestyle until now had been more painful than I thought. While crying, I collapsed on the spot. Seeing this, my husband rushed over in surprise. Hey, you! What are you saying to my mom? But, that's enough. We're going home. Kevin tried to pull me up forcefully. At that moment, my mother-in-law spoke up quietly. Wait a minute. What debts are you talking about? What? But didn't you have a huge debt? Surprised by my response, my mother-in-law's expression changed. There's no such thing. There's still my husband's pension and inheritance left, and I wouldn't be able to go on an overseas trip if I had debts. What? But in that instant, I realized the full picture of the situation. Anger welled up inside me. The reason why my husband's income didn't increase despite his daily overtime. Why I was the only one getting thinner and sick, despite the strict savings. And why my usually polite mother-in-law never thanked us for the money we sent. Then, I faced a shocking truth. The need for sending money, as my husband had been saying, was actually a fabrication. There was never a need to send them money. I could have gone to the doctor immediately when I got sick. I would have realized it if I had thought about it a bit more. Realizing this made the pointlessness of our past frugal life evident. But in our financially tight life, it had been hard to make a calm judgment. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law on the scene seemed to realize the truth behind my husband's words. They looked at Kevin with a doubtful gaze. Kevin, what's the meaning of this? Amy says she was sending money because you had debts. What's all this about? Kevin was clearly looking for an excuse. No, it's different. Actually, How is it different? Explain it clearly. Make us understand. Talk properly. Well, I could see that he was still trying to control the situation. My love for him had completely faded. I confronted my confused husband directly. What's all this about? There were no debts for your mother or sister. Where did all the money I gave you every month go? He began to mumble his words. Well, don't lie now. Tell me everything. The truth he revealed was something I found hard to accept. Actually, I was invited by a colleague and ended up going to nightclubs. You've been going to a nightclub? Yeah, well, how should I put it? I just got carried away without realizing it. I can't believe it. Going to such places when it hasn't been long since your father passed away. And that was around the time you started talking about sending money, right? I'm sorry, really sorry. I just went there for a bit of a change of pace. I didn't think it was a big deal. Such an excuse can't be accepted. How can you behave so irresponsibly? Lying about sending money and using my hard-earned money for going to nightclubs. I can never forgive that. No, it's not like that. I never meant to hurt you, Amy. I just got a bit carried away, that's all. I really regret it. As I shouted, my husband tried to appease me, piling up lies. But trust once lost, even between husband and wife, is not easily regained. His impromptu lies and insincere attitude completely extinguished my love for him. No matter how long his apologies continued, I couldn't forgive him in my heart. I couldn't bear it anymore. I felt it was impossible to continue living with someone who lied to satisfy his own desires. With despair welling up from the depths of my heart, I told my husband my final words. I'm fed up. Saying I didn't intend to hurt you is no joke at all. Not only did you deceive me with lies, but how much do you need to belittle me? While I had a fever, you forced me to save money and enjoyed yourself in nightclubs? Unbelievable. Sarah's voice of surprise echoed in the background as I continued indignantly. I've been saving hard for your dear mother. Food, daily necessities, clothing. I've been enduring it all. Do you understand that effort? I can't even think of you as a family anymore. Such a scumbag should just go to hell. Just wait. I only went to nightclubs. Just that? The drinks you enjoyed with the money saved while I was sick must have tasted great. No, it was for work. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm leaving. Wait, Amy, please, I need you. What? Now? Have as much fun as you want in the nightclubs and see how it feels. Don't say that. By the way, I want all the money I gave you as support back. Make sure you pay it all back. Realizing the situation, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law hurriedly showed a posture of apology. Amy, I'm really sorry. I can't believe my foolish son did such a thing. It's truly shameful. Because of my thoughtless brother. Mother, Sarah, please don't apologize. It's not your fault. No, we have a responsibility too. We want to make amends somehow. Amy, I'm so sorry too. My brother has caused such trouble. Don't worry about it. But I've decided to divorce. I'm truly grateful to both of you, but please let me say goodbye. They nodded while shedding tears. Mother, Sarah, thank you for everything until now. At that moment, my husband called out to me with a pained voice. He knelt on the spot and continued to make excuses. Amy, please forgive me. I really regret what I've done until now. Before I could react, Sarah moved first and slapped my husband across the face. As he stood there stunned with a swollen cheek, Sarah looked down at him and said, I can't believe you would do something so terrible. How much more did you need to torment Amy? Sarah, lying to Amy to take the money meant for supporting the family, not allowing her to go to the hospital, and on top of that, spending that money at nightclubs. How can you be so heartless? I'm ashamed to be your sister. Wait, just hear me out. What's the point now? The fact that you've been forcing Amy to save and suffer for these past few months is true, isn't it? Mom and I will never forgive you. Never associate with us again. Do you understand? Don't ever show your face to us again. My sister-in-law, holding back tears, forcibly dragged my husband out and threw him outside. She locked the door and cut off all communication with my husband. No matter how much he pleaded at the entrance, the door was not opened. Amy, I'm really sorry. There's not much I can say now, but forget about that man and find happiness. With those words, I was hugged tightly by my sister-in-law. After expressing my gratitude, I left my in-laws' house. Then, I moved out of the house where I lived with my husband and found a new place near my workplace. Since I was already employed permanently, I didn't face much difficulty in living even after the divorce. I consulted a lawyer I knew to proceed with the divorce. It was clear that my husband was at fault, and the divorce was quickly finalized. I claimed the money he fraudulently took from me as support and the resulting compensation. I made sure to collect the maximum amount. He ended up having to pay the compensation in a lump sum and is now living days incomparably harder than before. I hear he is consumed with endless overtime and working through the night. Naturally, he no longer has time to frequent the nightclubs he used to enjoy. Now, he's just an existence who works. After the divorce, I received several messages from my ex-husband. I was wrong, forgive me. I'm not going to nightclubs anymore. I don't want to get back together. I'm just really in trouble. Can you lend me some money? Please, you're the only one I can rely on. In the end, it's all about money. I feel nothing but pity for him. Now that all the payments are finished, I'm thinking of blocking his contact. Meanwhile, I still keep in touch with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They worry about me and have been in regular contact even after the divorce. Just the other day, seeing me having regained my spirits, my mother-in-law showed tears. Amy, I'm so happy to see you doing well. Mother, don't worry about me. I can live on my own strength. I always thought you'd be okay, Amy. But remember, you can always rely on me and Sarah if you need anything. Thank you so much. Let's go to Cancun together next time, just the three of us. Of course, I'm looking forward to it. If it weren't for the support of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I couldn't have overcome the trial of divorce. Since they always wish for my happiness, I vow to live my life with all my strength. My name is Suzanne. I'm 45 years old. My husband is the same age as me, and we live together with his mother. I have a feeling my mother-in-law will have something to say, so I better get dinner started. Time sure flew by. Before I knew it, it was past 5 p.m. I took a short break and headed to the kitchen on the first floor. It seemed my mother-in-law hadn't come home yet. I took a moment to relax and started to think about the dinner menu. I work from home as a fashion designer, so this house also serves as my workplace. The living and dining areas are on the first floor, and the second floor houses our bedroom and my workspace. I'm home. Today was exhausting. Upon seeing me, my mother-in-law let out an exaggerated sigh. What followed were her usual remarks. You're just starting dinner? Isn't it a bit late? I came home tired, and my son will be home soon, you know? My mother-in-law tended to nitpick about small things. Sorry, mother-in-law. While she is enjoying her retirement, I'm still working. I wish she'd understand that sometimes. Nonetheless, I tried to change the topic by asking, Mother-in-law, where did you go today? I met up with some neighbors. Apparently, they're going to attend an event at the senior citizens' home. But honestly, chatting with other elderly folks can be tiring. I see. That must have been a bit tough, I replied to her with a smile. I was saying to myself inwardly, you're an elderly yourself, aren't you? If you'd like to do something nice, maybe you can get me something sweet. How about getting a bun from the next door shop? My mother-in-law always prioritized her own feelings. She often tried to get me to do things her way. It was tiring, but I always thought of ways to handle it. If she made a fuss, I might just give her the old cake from the fridge. I spent my days with her like this. Suzanne, is this all for today's menu? She asked with a slightly surprised look. Before her were pot roast with braised vegetables, home-style chicken noodle soup, and leftover fried chicken with pickles. Well, I was a bit busy today, so I made something quick. Even if you're busy with work, you shouldn't neglect your duties as a wife. Next to me, my husband said, "Yeah, but this looks good enough to me." He said that happily and began to eat my cooking. There was a subtle tension at the dinner table. When I was a newlywed, I was always on edge, but I lived each day to the fullest. I'd get up early, stay up late, cook, sew, arrange flowers. I cherished each of these hobbies. As she reminisced, I was reminded of her era. Indeed, her sewing skills and her hobbies, like flower arrangements, were truly impressive. People around often said Suzanne's mother-in-law is really graceful, but they didn't know how demanding she could be at home. I've lived with her for over 20 years. When we first started our married life, my husband and I enjoyed our time together. But one day, my mother-in-law suddenly came to live with us. Her marriage wasn't going well, and she had a fallout with my father-in-law. He had a stern demeanor and she seemed scared of him. According to my husband, his father was sometimes very hard on her and, sadly, even raised his hand against her. While he was doted on as their son, his mother was treated poorly. Then, when my father-in-law suddenly declared he was remarrying, she had to leave with nothing. Nearing 50, she seemed lost with nowhere to go. My husband and I decided to take in my mother-in-law because we were concerned about her. 20 years have passed since then, and I began to notice changes in my mother-in-law's personality. She started directing the same behavior she had once received from my father-in-law towards us. One day, when I was busy with household chores and couldn't make tea, I asked my husband to do it for me. He kindly obliged, but my mother-in-law shot me a look and asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm sorry, my hands are full right now." "So what? You only contribute $500 in rent every month. What are you thinking?" She blurted out. Watching her make the tea herself, I thought, if you could do it yourself, you should have done it from the start. Living together like this made me realize how challenging it truly was. One day, my mother-in-law came home looking rather excited. She walked around the house with a spring in her step, humming a cheerful tune. "Mother-in-law, you seem to be in a good mood. Did something good happen? Speaking of which, Suzanne, which room do you think is bigger, the one on the first or second floor?" Her question caught me off guard. "The room on the second floor has more space. If you remove the walls, you can utilize even more of it." "Really? Then I shouldn't have any space issues." Wondering what she was up to, I asked her for more details. "Are you planning on starting something new?" "Actually, I'm going to start a sewing class," she said with a proud and happy expression. "A sewing class?" As a teacher, I was genuinely surprised. The sewing circle at the community center is ending, and a friend suggested we start a new class together. It was surprising that my nearly 70-year-old mother-in-law would be teaching. "That's amazing. Sounds like fun." I responded with a bit of an exaggerated reaction. "So, you're having the sewing class at the community center?" "No, not there," she said with a smile. "Then, where will you hold it?" "Here, at this house." "What? Are you serious?" I blurted out in disbelief. "That's why the second floor room seems perfect. Please tidy it up a bit. I'll have students coming over soon, so let's keep it neat. But that's where I do a lot of my work." I replied with a concerned look. "Your job, right? You can use the first floor's room." I was taken aback, but that room is a bit small, and I need the flooring for my tools. She seemed to ponder a bit but eventually smiled. "I'll reconsider, but I really like that room." Struggling for words, I asked, "So, what should I do then?" She took my hand and said, "Maybe you can rent an external studio for your work. I'll look into it." And with that, she headed upstairs. I watched as she began to carefully put away my tools and materials. Taking a deep breath, I mustered some courage. "In that case, could I reduce the monthly rent I've been paying?" She smiled warmly. "Let's suggest it. But remember, we need to cooperate and support each other from now on." I reluctantly replied, "Understood." Then, the day of the sewing class my mother-in-law had planned arrived. The room was filled with lively voices. There were about 10 students, mostly my age, and I recognized a few faces. "Suzanne, can you help me out? Please serve tea to everyone." I nodded and headed upstairs after making the tea. After distributing the tea, I remembered something and said with a smile, "Now, about the room's usage fee." A momentary silence followed. Usage fee? What's that about? Wait, we need to pay today? Some of the students looked at me with surprised faces. My mother-in-law seemed to be hiding a hint of anger. Actually, this room is my workspace. So, if you want to use it, I'd like to charge a bit. Renting a space this size can be quite costly. My mother-in-law silently observed the reactions of the students. It amounts to over $2,000 a month, so if we split it among everyone here today, it's about $100 per person. Is that something everyone can agree with? I waited for a response with a smile. Suzanne, you can't be serious about this, can't you? There was confusion on my mother-in-law's face. Yes, we will actually need to collect usage fees, but not from the participants today. We will also need to cover utilities and property taxes. As I continued in a gentle tone, my mother-in-law's expression softened. All right, I understand. But Suzanne, the utilities and such. I need some time to think about that. Well, if you use this room, it's only fair. I responded with a smile. The students, who had been listening to our conversation, began to murmur. Wait, was this originally Suzanne's room? Yes, it was initially my workspace. Knowing that, I might have to reconsider taking classes here. While some students looked worried, a few started to pack up to leave. What's the meaning of this? Inviting us and then doing this. One of my mother-in-law's friends, Michelle, raised her voice in frustration. Michelle, I'm sorry. This room is also Suzanne's workspace. My mother-in-law, looking frantic, called out to the departing students. Wait, please. But the sound of doors closing could be heard one after another. Michelle looked at my mother-in-law with a puzzled face. Everyone, I apologize for the surprise. But this room is really important to me. I want everyone to have a good time here, so I just ask for a bit of understanding. I tried to ease the tension. But Michelle said, next time, make sure to discuss this in advance, and with a bitter smile, she patted my mother-in-law's shoulder and left. My mother-in-law stood there for a while. I finished my tea, left the room quietly, and decided to enjoy the outdoor air. Later, at a cozy cafe bathed in soft light, I was having a good time. In front of me were Michelle and the students involved in the earlier incident. Michelle, thank you for the other day. As I expressed my heartfelt gratitude, Michelle smiled warmly. It's okay, Suzanne. But I was shocked that your mother-in-law would pull such a stunt. She said with a chuckle. I didn't expect things to turn out this way. But now, I'm really enjoying it. A student sitting next to me said shyly. That day's events were actually a plan we had secretly hatched. The truth is, Michelle is the mother-in-law of my friend and we've always been close. She always sees right through me when I'm in trouble. That's why, with Michelle's help, we decided to execute a certain plan. One of the students, who was the only one unaware of the situation, exclaimed, Wait, all that was planned? I said with hopeful anticipation. Well, I might have spiced things up a bit, but hopefully this will get my mother-in-law to be more considerate. Suzanne, you've really surprised me by coming up with something this entertaining, Michelle said with a bright smile. The atmosphere in the cafe was warm and friendly. Michelle was quite interested in my future plans. So, Michelle, what are you planning to do about the sewing class? For now, I'm planning to hold it at a different location. I see. I can introduce you to a place I know. They're very reliable. That's so kind of you, Suzanne. You're always so dependable. Michelle's words filled my heart with joy. After this incident, I felt our bond has deepened even more. As I sipped my fragrant tea, confident in this. When I got home, I noticed my mother-in-law seemed a bit different. Suzanne, this is unbelievable. You embarrassed me in front of so many people. You need to apologize to everyone right now. Her eyes were furious. Taking a deep breath, I slowly took out my phone. Sorry, I'm on the phone right now, I said, showing her the name Michelle on the screen. Her astonished face was unforgettable. Huh? Why are you talking to Michelle? When my surprised mother-in-law reached for my phone, my husband's voice came from the speaker. "Hey, Mom, what's this about Michelle?" She was speechless, her eyes wide with shock. Yes, I had cheekily changed my husband's contact name to Michelle just for fun. Seeing her confused expression, I couldn't help but smile. "Don't worry, it's just a little joke," I said, heading to the kitchen. After that day, my mother-in-law's attitude completely changed. She became gentler and seemed to be more cautious around me. During meals, she seemed wary, as if wondering what I might be up to next. My husband noticed the change, commenting, "Mom, you seem a bit off. Is everything okay?" I wonder why," she responded. "It might just be because she's getting older," my husband added, looking deep in thought. From then on, our home became more peaceful. I started to relax more in my daily life. Who would have thought that a simple prank could change the atmosphere at home so much? I cherish each day, enjoying each and every moment.